In the heart of a brutal war, where every feat of advancement costs blood, time and strategy, a machine that is changing the rules of the game emerges. It is not an attack tank, nor a precision missile. This is what the Russians call the battlefield boar, the BMR-3MA. As forces face in Ukraine, an invisible enemy hides under the ground terrestrial mines. A deadly legacy of the First World War that still paralyzes whole columns, disorganizes offensive and transforms the soil into fatal traps. The Russian answer? A 51-ton shielded monster designed to pave the way through the hell. Since World War II, armies have been looking for ways to open safe routes in the midst of mined fields. British armored shields like Churchill were adapted with Minazeratos, and the Bullhorn plan, used on D-Day, spinned heavy currents to detonate hidden explosives. It was the beginning of the war against an enemy buried under the feet. On the front line also emerged the famous Bangalore torpedoes, explosive tubes that opened temporary clearing. But the methods were not always ethical. In conflicts such as the war between Iran and Iraq, civil prisoners were used as mine scouts, a practice as cruel as desperate. It was from this brutality that the urgency was born by technological solutions. And today, more than 80 years later, technology has delivered a powerful answer: the BMR-3MA Viper. Based on the robust T-90A chassis, BMR-3MA is not just an adapted tank. It is a walking fortress built from scratch with a single mission: open safe paths in high-risk areas. With an 840 horsepower diesel engine, it reaches up to 53 kilometers per hour and has a 500 kilometers autonomy, where few can reach. But what really makes you lethal against minas is your TMTS system, a set of heavy rollers that rotate under pressure, detonating explosives buried before any other vehicle passes. And it doesn't matter if the mine is activated by pressure, magnetic field, or radio signal. TMTS treats all as equal. Automatic eliminations. In front of the vehicle, 2 clean trails are opened, perfectly aligned with the default armored width, allowing for whole columns to advance safely. In one of the most mined countries on the planet, this can mean the difference between the success and the total failure of an operation. The technological arsenal of the BMR-3MA goes further. It comes equipped with electromagnetic jammers, signal blockers that neutralize mines activated by remote control, and acoustic and infrared sensors that mislead reactive devices to sound and heat. Another asset is the ability to operate remotely. When the front line is too hot for a human crew, the BMR-3MA can be guided at a distance, reducing risks and keeping the mission active even under heavy fire. Inside, the sealed booth holds 2 crew and up to 3 combat engineers, with CBRN protection against chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear agents. It also has ventilation, heating, supplies, and autonomy for up to 2 days in the field. And here is the most impressive. Since it went into operation in Ukraine, no BMR-3 unit has been destroyed or seriously damaged in one of the most lethal environments for armored from World War II. And in the next block, let's understand how the BMR-3MA fits into the modern doctrine of land war, its strategic impacts on Russian advancement, and the dilemmas faced by Russia by deciding to sacrifice T-90 tanks to create these war machines. BMR-3MA is not a direct combat tank. He does not lead the crossfire or exchange fire with the enemy, but he leads another war, a silent war where the enemy is under the earth. And this war, as invisible as it is mortal, is decisive for the advancement of Russian troops in mine areas of Ukraine. It is estimated that more than 30% of the Ukrainian territory is contaminated by landmines and makeshift traps. It is the equivalent of an entire country full of hidden explosives. No infantry advances with confidence in such a field. No logistics flows efficiently. The war literally pockakes. This is where BMR-3MA becomes protagonist. When the front crashes through minas, it is called. Your entry imposes respect. The TMTS detection system begins to rotate, jammers are activated, and Colossus advances like a steel bull, destroying invisible threats under their treadmills. While ordinary tanks are easy prey, the BMR-3MA was made to resist even high-impact anti-trinker mines. The Contact 1 reactive shield bursts into controlled micro-explosions to divert heat jets and piercing. He is a moving wall. It does not replace the tank, but that is what allows the tank to reach where it needs. It is the obstacle destroyer, the path opener. In modern wars, without it, you get stuck. And more than paving the way, the BMR-3MA records. Its digital indexing system maps each neutralized mine and shares this information in real time with the command network. This allows you to plan alternative routes, reorganize columns, and avoid future ambushes. It is intelligence in action. At Don Base, BMR-3 units opened essential corridors for the transportation of ammunition, food, and equipment for advanced positions. In sectors such as Severodetsk and Bakhmut, they were fundamental for the repositioning of heavy artillery amid dangerous land. But this power has a cost. The BMR-3MA is born of the sacrifice of one of Russia's most advanced tanks, the T-90A. A direct combat tank with offensive capacity is dismantled to make way for the wreckage platform. A serious logistical and strategic dilemma for Moscow. Each BMR-3MA requires deep adaptations. The 125mm cannon is removed. The combat system is replaced by sensors, radars, and the TMTS complex. The cost is high, but in the brutal mathematics of modern war, avoiding losing dozens of soldiers or armored with a single vehicle makes the scale weigh in favor. Therefore, in many offensive, the BMR-3MA became the first in line. Behind him come the BMPs, the T-90M, and the logistics vehicles. It opens the safe corridor and the others follow. It is the armored scout, which step where others do not dare to step. Success drew attention outside Russia. Countries like Iraq have already shown interest in the acquisition of BMR-3MA. In regions with a history of irregular war and large contamination by Minas Gerais, the machine represents security, advancement, and logistics power. And the adaptation of the BMR-3MA to different climates and land expands its appeal. Whether in deserts, forests, or destroyed urban areas, it keeps performance stable. A joker to any modern army that faces underground threats. But no technology is proof of everything. Not every minefield can be cleaned with a single vehicle. In the final part, we will explore the operational challenges of BMR-3MA, the real risks faced by its crews, and the future of this titan in the field of military engineering. The war against the mines is far from over. But no machine, however advanced, is invulnerable. And with the BMR-3MA is no different. In the field, he faces severe operational challenges that put to the test not only his shield, but the physical and psychological resistance of the crew that leads him. The first challenge is the very nature of the mines. Some are triggered by pressure, others by heat, vibration, or magnetic signal. And the most modern operate with sensors that identify the type of vehicle that approaches before exploding. The BMR-3MA has jammers and electronic systems to disarm or deceive these devices, but it is not always enough. There are reports of vehicles seriously damaged by makeshift explosives, buried in multiple layers or camouflaged under metal carcasses that confuse the sensors. In addition, the terrain does not always cooperate. Deep mud, compact snow, devastated urban areas, each scenario requires manual adjustments and rapid reprogramming in TMT systems. The crew often needs to leave the vehicle to check suspicious areas on foot, at the constant risk of ambushes or artillery fire. It is a work that mixes cutting-edge technology with raw courage. Another critical point is vulnerability during the mission. The BMR-MA advances slowly, methodically, sweeping each meter ahead. This makes it an easy target for kamikaze drones, saturation artillery, and snipers. So he is never alone. It is usually escorted by tanks and mechanized infantry, forming a mobile protection bubble. But even this strategy has its limits when war adapts as fast as technology. Maintenance is another problem. Each mission requires heavy revisions. TMTS arms wear out with use, sensors lose calibration, and the reactive shielding system needs to be constantly replenished with new contact blocks. In a war scenario where wear is daily, keeping the operational BMR-MA becomes a race against time. And most importantly, there are few available. The number of active units is still small, and each represents a huge investment. This requires Russian commanders to accurately choose where and when to use the machine, prioritizing areas of high strategic value. An allocation error can mean the loss of the vehicle, and with it, the stoppage of an entire offensive. Even so, the BMR-3MA continues to be a symbol of modern war. Not by firepower, but for the ability to shape the terrain, to transform the impossible into viable. It is the machine that walks where others stop, that steps where no one would dare. But it is also a clear reminder that behind each technological advance, there are men inside the cabin risking everything, and an adaptable enemy ready to answer.